Yeah, I had won a shit ton of medals. I had a great career. Doesn't matter. I wasn't happy with who I was.
The end of an athletic career can be more challenging than the fiercest competitions, and some athletes can't handle it.
So it is with a great amount of shame that I stand before you and tell you that I have betrayed your trust.
Going through hardships and changing status from stardom to everyday life is difficult. But what happens when the fame, the money, and the high that winning them brings is suddenly taken away, and they're left with nothing but the question mark hanging over their heads?
I mean, I played with great champions. I played with players that already was wow. I played with players that I saw was a talent, became wow. But the one I felt that could do it longer was, and he didn't do it, was Adriano. Because the way he was an animal. He could shoot from every angle. Nobody could tackle him. Nobody could take the ball. He was a pure animal. But it lasted for a short time.
Join us as we explore the stories of athletes who couldn't handle the end of their careers. Heroes whose lives are defined by the game and the fight after it.
After I got out of prison, I really wanted to take some time to really focus on the kids and spend time with my husband, and I'm not an athlete anymore.
Number 1. Michael Phelps. Starting with the Olympic swimming champion Michael Phelps, whose name is equal to the sport, claimed 23 out of 28 total gold medals from the Athens Olympic Games in 2004 to the Rio Olympic Games in 2016. Nevertheless, like most athletes, Phelps experienced many difficulties when he realized his competitive career had ended. Following his departure from the competitive swimming scene in 2016, he actively talked about his struggles with severe depression, anxiety, and the psychological sensation of nothingness. In an interview with Sports Illustrated, Phelps told the world that he was jobless and empty after the 2012 Olympics in London, where he clinched gold and silver medals. The orderly organism structure and the discipline he had pursued for over 2 decades were no more, and he didn't know who he was or what he would do daily. One of the dark times in Phelps's life was in September 2014, when he was arrested on the charges of DUI in Baltimore, Maryland. Police arrested him for recklessly speeding at the rate of 84 miles per hour in a 45-mile-per-hour zone with a blood alcohol level of 0.14, nearly twice the legal limit.
Michael Phelps, the most decorated Olympian of all time, has been arrested again for DUI.
The case was his second DUI offense, the first one being in 2004. During this time, Phelps got even lonelier and more depressed. He admitted in an interview that he attempted suicide, saying, "I didn't want to be alive anymore." However, Phelps realized the need for help and wanted to turn his life around. He admitted himself to the Meadows, a behavioral health treatment center in Arizona, for 6 weeks. This was one of those defining moments in his life. Since then, he's been an advocate for awareness of mental illness. He has recently appeared in documentaries such as Angst and created his documentary, The Weight of Gold, about Olympic athletes' mental issues, trying to help those in need. Number 2. Adriano Ribero. Next, we have Adriano Ribero, who was once ranked among the most formidable European and Brazilian football strikers. Taking part in Inter Milan, Adriano scored 74 goals in 177 games and entered the team's list of legends and the Brazil team. Still, his career peaked on a sad note with the death of his father, Almir Leite Ribeiro, in 2004 and reduced to a decline. Adriano's father died from a heart attack, the man who always supported his son emotionally. The news came to him when he was at Inter Milan, and Adriano could not handle this pain. Adriano cried uncontrollably to the extent that his managers and teammates failed to console him. His father's death was a breaking point in the young Adriano, who had immense trouble dealing with it, and thus relied on alcohol to ease the burden. For Adriano, alcohol abuse began to manifest in profound personal as well as occupational spheres. He developed a drinking problem, which saw him getting very rowdy during training sessions as well as matches. He created some sort of an illness and became overweight. Therefore, his agility was gone, perhaps, with it. Despite efforts to return to sports many more times, including returning to Brazil to feature for Flamengo and Corinthians football clubs, Adriano never rose to the level he had previously increased. Miami United in 2016 was his last try in the hope of coming back and doing his best.
Até hoje, quando eu vou na Itália, até o pessoal me pergunta, pô, pá, por que você largou o futebol? Eu falei, porque as coisas foram acontecendo assim tão rápido na minha vida, que às vezes é difícil você também lidar com isso. É complicado.
But the results were disappointing, and he could not escape the vices that had befallen him. Number 3, Marion Jones. If you think Adriano's drinking problem was bad, wait until you hear about Marion Jones, who was once the reigning queen of track and field, mesmerizing the entire world with her speed and muscles. She was awarded 5 medals during the Sydney Olympics in 2000, with 3 gold medals. However, the dark side of her life was hidden, and sooner or even later, she would experience one of the most scandalous falls in sports history. In 2007, Jones's career was ruined when she was linked to the doping scandal involving the Bay Area Laboratory Cooperative, or BALCO, that initiated the use of performance-enhancing drugs, or PEDs, in athletics.
Been held to a completely different standard than everybody else. If they were scrutinized and some of the law enforcement tools and pressures were applied to others like they were to her, I think this stuff would come out. And I do have knowledge that some of the other girls that were in that race were using stuff, and I'd been told this by their coaches, or I'd even given them stuff.
After years of denial of taking tainted products, Jones admitted to using steroids, which were obtained from BALCO. In a rather emotional and dramatic moment taped outside a courthouse at White Plains, New York, Jones admitted that she lied about her drug taking, thus telling the public, "I have deceived you, and you have right to be angry with me."
So it is with a great amount of shame that I stand before you and tell you that I have betrayed your trust.
The consequences were swift and severe. In 2012, the IOC withdrew all 5 Olympic medals from her, and she was banned for life from athletics, thus ending her athletics career. The legal consequences were as severe. In January 2008, Jones was privileged to be convicted and given a 6-month federal prison for perjury after she testified falsely regarding her use of PEDs and check fraud scam.
Because when I walked into prison, unlike most people that go to prison, I was there for almost 6 months. And there were nights that were extremely hard, missing my family.
In addition, she was given 2 years of supervised release and 800 hours of community service. When Jones got out, she struggled to find ways to rehabilitate herself and start anew. She was financially broken, mainly due to lawyer fees. In addition, the stigma caused by her doping scandal restricted her employment prospects in fields outside the sports industry. In a bid to do something new, Jones decided to try her luck in professional basketball with the Tulsa Shock of the WNBA. However, she couldn't redeem herself. Number 4, Oscar de la Hoya. Now, let's turn to a very popular boxer from the American ring, Oscar de la Hoya, who has impressed people with his incredible talent and charm. In the prime of his fighting career, he held 11 world titles across 6 weight classes, placing him in the company of the sport's all-time greats. However, De La Hoya's life became rather dark after he retired from boxing in 2009. The once professional boxer found himself jobless and exposed to personal challenges he had not been presented with before. For many years now, De La Hoya has been very vocal about his struggles with alcohol and cocaine, and in an interview with The Guardian, he stated that these problems began before his retirement. De La Hoya faced some major issues in his private life, such as alcoholism, which made him check in and out of rehabilitation centers several times in the future to attempt to get his life back. In 2011, he admitted to the Univision channel that he had voluntarily admitted himself to a rehabilitation center for substance abuse problems and called it a measure to save his life. The consequences of it were not only destructive to his image, but also to his career, relationships, as well as his mental condition. Besides alcohol and drug problems, De La Hoya had severe depression. In an interview with HBO Sports, he said that he had hit rock bottom and that he had at one time considered taking his own life. He was pulled down by the challenges that grew with fame, some personal issues that he never addressed, and he lost himself as he was no longer a fighter. Number 5, Allen Iverson. Last but not least, we have Allen Iverson, one of the most skilled and talented players in NBA's history. Iverson received an MVP award and 11 All-Star invitations, which many fans recognized as the non-traditional image of an African-American basketball player. For these reasons, he was well loved by spectators, mainly for his fearlessness in the field and his influence on the game. But post-basketball, Iverson's life has been far from a fairy tale, involving poor financial management and personal vices, unlike on the basketball court. Even though Iverson earned over $200 million throughout his playing years, he retired as a broke man. ESPN and the Washington Post have reported that apart from his generosity, he was also living an extravagant lifestyle, was a poor manager of his resources, and trusted the wrong people for financial investments, resulting in the depletion of his wealth. In 2010, Iverson officially declared bankruptcy after being unable to pay off his debt to a jeweler. Legal and personal problems also contributed to Allen Iverson's financial difficulties. He went through a highly publicized divorce, which included contentious child support disputes. These legal cases worsened his financial situation and added to the chaos in his life. Moreover, an identity crisis was also a major factor in the problems Iverson experienced post-career. Basketball was the sole purpose of his life, so as soon as he quit the game, he struggled to find his identity. This void translated to episodes of depression because after basketball, Iverson had no structure or identity to embrace. In sports, transitioning from peak performance to life after the game can be incredibly challenging, as we've seen with athletes like Adriano, Marion Jones, and others. Their stories are powerful reminders of the pressures and pitfalls that can accompany even the most significant successes. Now, tell us, could these athletes have had different post-career journeys had they taken an alternative route? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the untold stories of sports legends.